weekend, everybody. Welcome to Tiger Sidelines on MC22 alongside Gabe DeArmond and Dave Matter, who haven't slept in about a week and a half. I'm Bo Bayman. Happy Thanksgiving. We've been off for 2 weeks, and holy smokes, the things that have gone on at the University of Missouri has been incredible since we've been gone. We taped 2 weeks ago Wednesday.
Yep.
And right after that, the NCAA says we're upholding everything, and then really all heck breaks loose.
I mean, I was thinking last night, Dave, 8 days ago, we woke up and we're like, all right, we got to go cover a basketball game against Oklahoma. Like, that was the biggest thing on the radar.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
Let's start with the NCAA appeal being denied. So football, baseball, softball all get the postseason bans, the recruiting stuff. I mean, it was just one of those things that you thought, this is so Missouri,
Right.
and I mean, what do you do?
Like, it wasn't shocking, but like, why?
But they seem shocked.
They did seem shocked. Some of that might have been a little faux shock, outrage.
Yeah.
But why take 19 weeks to decide nothing? That's what I
Right.
don't get. Like, in whatever. I mean, it kind of held the football season hostage to some degree, but like, those coaches in those other sports, those are the ones I think you feel bad for because they have to recruit year-round. This impacts them so much more because they're sports on a smaller scale. But, man, I mean, to take 19 weeks to decide, we're good with it. That's fine.
Well, and I mean, softball, it was one player, and she
Yeah.
transferred away.
Yeah.
To
And
use
this
LSU.
team, this team 4 years later now can't play in the tournament. Look, it's crazy. I don't understand it, but like Dave said, I also don't understand why anybody would have been surprised.
Right.
Yeah.
This is like getting convicted and going back to the same judge and saying, but like really, we were cool to you. Why? That's it. And he said, no, I'm good with what I decided.
So then there's a football game, and they beat Arkansas. Arkansas is a terrible team. Connor Bazelak, I thought, looked good until he obviously injured his knee, and as we found out, tore his ACL. Taylor Powell goes in. They do enough to win that game to finish 6-6, and then we find out the next day Barry Odom no longer the head football coach at the University of Missouri.
It was a strange post game. I was there down on the field in Little Rock. It felt like closure. Like it felt more like everyone was saying goodbye, more though than hey, we beat Arkansas. And Barry didn't have any good answers after the game as far as his future. I think he knew, but he didn't want to lead on. And then sure enough, the news comes the next morning that he's gone. I don't think anybody should have been shocked by that. The Arkansas game had nothing to do with the decision, obviously.
I think you could tell too, Gabe, like even just watching on TV, at the end of the game, there were emotions that aren't, hey, we just beat Arkansas. It was, this is 4 years over.
It wasn't just that. I was watching the broadcast, and again, maybe I was reading into it because I thought I knew something anyway. Right. But I just watched the game, and I thought, this is the least engaged I've ever seen him on the sideline. Yeah. He's not screaming. He's not jumping around. He just kind of looks like he's there for 3 more hours, and that was what happened.
About the good thing was they did win that game. I mean, we don't want to talk a lot about it, but it does get them bowl eligible or to the magic 6 wins number for the 3rd year in a row. The thing that just went downhill, and Jim Sturk said it, I mean, you lost 5 in a row. You had all this momentum and just completely lost it.
Yeah, and that was unforgivable in his mind. I mean, it's, again, I think it goes back to, it's not all 5 losses, obviously. There's no shame in losing to Georgia. They've got a chance to be in the playoff. It's that Vanderbilt loss. I mean, that's the one that was the tipping point, whatever you want to call it. I mean, that one you cannot get over.
If you just change that one, he's probably still the coach, right?
Right,
Yeah.
I would think so.
Because 7 and 5, you can't fire.
And there's the trickle-down effect. What did that loss do? I mean, maybe they win that game. Maybe they go into Kentucky and they battle the elements and they do just fine. And who knows about Tennessee down the road, but that started it all.
Vanderbilt, and you could make a case for Wyoming. Because remember, Wyoming, they're driving in the end, and they just can't get the go-ahead score. Again, that gets you to 7 if you win that.
And here's how slim the margin is that people don't understand. We've talked about 2 games that change on one play, right? Tennessee could have changed on one play. I'll go further. You go back to last year. Take the PI call against DeMarcus Acey away against Kentucky. Just that play. Change nothing else. They win that game. They're 9-3 instead of 8-4. Who knows who their bowl opponent is? Maybe it's a better matchup. Maybe he wins 10 games last year, and nothing he can do this year gets him fired, right? I mean, so we're literally talking about one play, and you want to know why people get so mad about officiating? Like, you can make the argument an official cost Barry Odom his job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little flimsy, but you get my point.
Dave, one of the things about Barry was he wasn't Jim Sterk's guy. Right. And that always comes up when you have something to the effect of, okay, we're firing to get a new coach, but that wasn't his guy, so he wants his guy in here. And that's kind of the case.
Because Jim Sterk's, he was never on the line for what Barry Odom did. Now, if he kept him another year, after 6-6 and goes 3-9, then he is. But I think the sooner he can separate himself from that and go find his own guy, he kind of gets a little bit of a refresh, on his legacy or on his reputation. Mm-hmm. That was the opposite of the Mike Alden, Gary Pinkel situation back in 2004. I mean, their records are very similar, had a setback year, but Mike Alden said, hey, if I get rid of this guy, that's a poor reflection on me because I hired him. So very different situation.
25-25 overall, 13-19 versus SEC teams. 4-23 against teams with winning records, 1-10 against ranked opponents. So, I mean, there's certainly justification to let him go.
I think two things can be true. He did enough. You could argue he can come back. Like, this was not Kim Anderson, this is over, and there's no question. But it's also not unfair. I mean, they were 2 games worse last year than they should have been, and they were a minimum 2 games worse this year than they should have been.
Absolutely, and you could argue maybe they were 4 games worse this year. So now I can imagine your phones have been blowing up because people want to know who's going to be the next head coach. And Jim Sterk said, hey, we're going to try to nail it down in the next 10 days to 14 days. And that was last week. So now we're getting into sort of is there smoke signals coming from Jesse Hall?
I don't think it's that close. Yeah, we're taping this on Wednesday. I think what's different about this search is you've got an early signing period now. I mean, it's kind of an artificial deadline, and that wasn't the case in the past. And that's what December 18th is when that started. Yep. So that changes things.
Yeah. We've all heard the names. A lot of people are going to be in the tweets asking names. As we tape this, there's not really a clear front runner.
You know what people in our business hate to say? I have no idea. I have no idea. I mean, a couple times I thought I did, and I didn't. I don't know. I mean, this is so different. We've covered 3 ADs. Mike Alden had a lot of people around him that liked to talk. His searches were not hard to follow. Mack Rhoades talked himself, and his search was not hard to follow. Jim Sterk doesn't talk to anybody, and he sure doesn't talk to us, and that makes it hard to follow. And that's not a criticism. It's probably actually a credit to him.
Right.
But we're all guessing here.
And probably following planes and doing all that. That's what goes on these days in a coaching search. Hey, where's this plane going?
I don't know if ADs are better at hiring coaches, but I think they're better at misdirection than they were in the past. They've kind of figured that out a little bit.
I mean, here's the extent of what I know. Jim Sterk went to Atlanta. He was there for 3 days, and he interviewed some people. And one of them was Willie Fritz. That's what we know right now.
And Willie Fritz, of course, is at Tulane. You hear Healy from Charlotte. You've heard the guy from Army. I mean, there's plenty of guys. It looks to me like he's going to try to catch a guy on the up and coming. Would you agree with that?
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, there's some 59, 60-year-old coaches, late 50s coaches
like
who are like a Fritz. Is he really on the up? I mean, only if he gets a next job. I mean, he's got.
Is Troy Calhoun up and coming?
There's some kind of journeyman coaches out there who are, probably closer to retirement than they are like Will Healy on the other extreme.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes those guys just need a chance, at a big school. But are they really going to excite this fan base? Well, not until they win. That's kind of the deal with Missouri right now.
And doesn't Missouri have to realize who they are and say this even could be a stepping stone job for somebody?
But if you did that, if you realize that, why'd you fire Barry Odom? Like you can't come out of this with a guy that half the people are going, well, I don't really think he's better than the last guy. Like, you've got to have somebody that not only do you think is better, but that you can sell as better. And maybe that guy is there. But we said going into this, if he fires Barry, he kind of has to have not only a plan, but a pretty good idea who he can get. And I don't know about you. My impression now is that wasn't the case. He just fired Barry and said, I'm going to go find a guy, which is okay.
It's okay. If there's this many names involved, you would think, okay, well, maybe it's just a bunch of backup plans in case something goes wrong at the last minute, but I don't know.
But if it's something, I mean, the only way it's something goes wrong at the last minute, the guy has to be playing this weekend almost then, right? Yeah. Because otherwise, name him now. The sooner you can name him, the better.
Also, I don't think there's been a better time to hire a coach. There's not much competition out there. There's Arkansas, there's Ole Miss, there's Florida State.
Florida State doesn't affect
you.
State, Clay Helton's back now.
They're going to keep him. Yeah, I mean, and UNLV.
And Boston College. And
Yeah.
You're not all shopping at the same store.
No, absolutely. And this will probably get done, and it'll be a domino effect. You know, like one guy will go here, and then it's like, okay.
I mean, it seems like Missouri, Arkansas, and Ole Miss are talking about some of the same guys. I think Ole Miss might be a little bit different than the other two, but, you know, I mean, we're like, why is this taking so long and all that? We're on day 4. Arkansas's
Yeah.
on like day 26.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're any closer than Missouri is. I think they might be further away.
Speaking of domino effect, you have the place where recruits have said, hey, I'm opening back up. I'm not going. That happens. You've had Alberto, you've had Elliott, and you've had Colon Castillo all say, I'm going to the NFL draft. Again, not surprising that some of these guys
One of them
would
was
change.
surprising.
Well, yeah.
Castillo's a little surprising. Missouri's never lost more than 2 guys to an NFL draft before, at least announcing they're going pro. Now they've already got 3, and it's been.
going to say, they're not going to lose more than 2 to the actual NFL draft this year. But
But they'll put their names in,
And there might be more, and there will be some transfers, and this recruiting class is going to fall apart. Like, that's what you know when you make this change. If you don't know that going in, I mean, you should ask one of us, because we could have told you that would happen.
Right.
The good news is there'll be no bowl ban going forward for the new head coach. The bad news is the recruiting restrictions, but
I don't think those impact a guy that wants this job. I mean, Penn State overcame more. USC overcame more.
Baylor.
These recruiting restrictions are basically either don't take 3 more commitments or just find 3 guys that never play and they're going to a MAC school or something. And by the way, that's going to be taken care of because guys are going to leave. And there's 7 weeks where you can't go on the road. Well, if they're smart, they're using about 15 of those days right now.
yeah, right, absolutely. All right, let's take a break. We have a lot of tweets from you, and we'll answer them next. You're watching Tiger Sidelines right here on MC22. Welcome back, everybody. This is Dave Matter, Gabe DeArmond, I'm Bo Bayman. You're watching Tiger Sidelines. We're, of course, on MC22, the old tweet machine, hot and heavy this week. We're at Tiger Sidelines. The first one from MIZ Chiefs Heartbreak, I believe that is. How close are we to a complete fan base meltdown when you look at the regression of the basketball team and a potential disaster coaching hire when it comes to
Let's
fans?
take the second part of that. Let's not just assume this is a disastrous coaching hire. Let's let him make
I mean, it's
the
been
hire.
4 days.
Right.
It's been 4 days.
Let's let him make the hire before we immediately call it a disaster, which some people will. But look, and it's been a bad week. Like, there are some places you say, we went 9-3. It's been a bad week to be a Georgia fan. Like, bad weeks to be Missouri fans, I mean, those are bad weeks, man. This has been a bad week.
No doubt about it. Do we really have to renew the KU rivalry next season? Too late to back out? And Drew Lock is my only saving grace. Texans versus Broncos going to be great. Then Lock to Arrowhead the following week. Of course, Drew Lock winning his first NFL start as they beat the Chargers on a last-second field goal. And he played
Last-second pass interference.
Yeah, that's right.
To his credit.
Played decent, I thought, in that game.
He looked better than he did in the preseason. I'll give him that. He looked really sharp.
It was amazing how similar that game was to his first start at Missouri.
That's true.
The stats were almost identical. Didn't throw for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, but he won the game.
Absolutely. And some great catches by his wide receivers, no doubt. If you could pick a coaching staff based on press conferences and interviews, who would you pick?
I mean, like Mike Leach is in that discussion, right?
The good Mike Leach, not the one who berates people for being
but
stupid.
even that is entertaining.
It's entertaining unless you're on the end of it. I
Right.
guess.
Steve Spurrier is the offensive coordinator.
He's got to be.
Defensive guys are really boring.
For the most part, as we can attest.
Like, I don't know, like Mike Singletary?
Name your all-time favorite Mizzou coaches for press conference. Any sport, even if before your time. Well, Norm was always
It's
good.
Norm.
It's got to
Yeah.
be Norm. There's nothing better.
But speaking of, every press conference had the potential of you walking out going, oh man, my feelings are hurt and I feel real bad about myself. That was Norm.
Questioning your future in this profession.
Like, I want Norm to be funny, but not at my expense.
Yeah. Would the Tigers be best served to hire a coach who can get it back into Texas and recruit? I thought Odom was going to give it a go, but he changed the way coaches recruit by position and not area. Am I wrong?
They still did recruit
Right.
Texas. I mean, they kind of went nationwide a little bit, which a lot of people are sort of doing right now. So I don't think it's like number 1 on the list. Hey, can you recruit Texas?
Yeah, and how much harder is it to recruit Texas in the SEC? I mean, that's still a Big 12 state because that's where Texas and Oklahoma play. So I think they should recruit Illinois more and recruit Tennessee more and maybe even recruit like Michigan and Ohio if you can, although that's kind of tough to take kids from there right now.
Ohio State's halfway decent, I've been told. Does the new football head coach negotiate the size of salary pool for his coaching staff, or does he get a blank check for that? Sturck seems to be throwing around money he doesn't have, so I think the buck would need to stop somewhere.
Well, I don't know where that idea comes from. But.
Well, that's a big part of negotiations. I mean, you need a staff. It's a little different in football because you got 10 guys and all the guys under you, under them. So, yeah, this is a big part of the deal that we don't talk about much because it's not very interesting. But if you're head coach, it is.
Jason says, Friday I asked myself, what does Barry Odom do well as a coach? I could only come up with building relationships. That's not good enough. That's when I thought the move would be made. Turns out I didn't have to wait long, so I'll ask you guys, what did he do well?
I think that's fair. I mean, the players seem like they really love the guy. They talk for 4 years about running through this magical wall. They didn't necessarily play well for him all the time, but I think that's fair. And again, that's not enough.
I think he was a pretty good talent evaluator. When you have guys like Nick Bolton and Larry Roundtree and some of these guys who weren't really wanted by a lot of people, he found players. He maybe didn't find enough of them, and he certainly didn't find enough at the most important position on the field. I mean, like, you don't want to lay it all at one guy's feet. But the reason he's losing his job is because the quarterback play wasn't what they thought the quarterback play was going to be this year.
And his coordinator couldn't fix problems.
Right.
They just couldn't
100%.
solve their problems.
Will this be Jim Sturck's final football coaching hire?
Oh, I think almost certainly. Don't you?
Or
one way or the other.
What if he hires a guy who's so good he gets another job somewhere? Then in 2 years, and that's a good situation to have.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we all think Sturck's here maybe 4 more. His contract's 4 years. I think that's going to be about it here. So the reality is, I think probably because if the other guy leaves it, unless like you said, it's in 2 years, then the next guy's just going to do it.
All right. What does a non-big name coach need to do to re-energize his fan base before the team takes the field next season?
Can't be done.
Can't be done.
I mean, this coach ideally is about selling season tickets for 2021 because nobody's going to buy season tickets for next year, more so than normal based on a new coach. He's got to win next year, and then they'll buy in.
And you know, we haven't talked about this, but so much was put on Barry Odom to sell tickets and to get, like, he was doing a lot of things that shouldn't be the head coach's job to try to get people in the stands. And maybe maybe he should have spent more time coaching and like let the ticket sales people sell tickets.
Right, and I think being a Mizzou guy, I think that came more natural for him also. If they're going to hire an outsider, it's not going to seem as real and as genuine. Yeah, you're right. That's on the ADs.
The marketing and all that.
Interesting too that he, got bonuses for attendance. He got bonuses for being ranked. He got one this year, and then
he spent them all to buy Arkansas tickets last year.
That's right. Is it fair to be underwhelmed with Conzo Martin's recruiting? By the looks of last night, maybe.
I kind of don't know how you couldn't be underwhelmed. I mean, here's my favorite argument in sports. Well, he's a good recruiter, but he's not a very good coach. No,
part of the job.
No, good coaches are good recruiters.
Yeah.
Coaches that aren't that good don't recruit well because they may get guys that have stars, but they obviously didn't get good players.
Right.
Tom Osborne used to say Mizzou was a sleeping giant with St. Louis and Kansas City to recruit. Barry Odom was very successful at recruiting in-state and out of Texas. Alex Grinch seems to be the best coach to keep that going. Do you believe MU would take a head coach with no head coaching experience?
I don't think they should.
And I don't think Grinch is a guy they'll even look at. I mean, let's put it this way. If Alex Grinch was not Gary Pinkel's nephew who had been on staff here for a couple years, would anybody talk about him in this?
No.
What's funny is he got the job and everybody was in uproar. He's only getting it because he's Gary's nephew. Now it's, well, the only reason anybody's talking about him is because he's Gary Pinkel's nephew.
He's what Barry Odom was 6 years ago.
Right.
Which doesn't mean he can't be a great head coach, but I think there's something to be said. Missouri needs a clean break from this. Yeah. Like, it's been 20 years of basically the same staff. It's time to start over. Andy Hill, appreciate your time. Cornell Ford, appreciate your time. Like, this is brand new. We're getting rid of everything.
And it is interesting. Tom Osborne used to say that, and I remember that, but recruiting's different now.
Oh, it's absolutely different.
I mean, with the internet and email,
if you're Tom Osborne, when you're beating Missouri 73-6 with your fourth string, it's real easy to say good things about them.
30 years ago, Ohio State and Ole Miss and Florida weren't coming into St. Louis all the time to get the best players. it was Missouri or Illinois or maybe another Big Ten school.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks for all the tweets. Don't forget, we're at Tiger Sidelines. We'll take a break. We'll talk about that basketball team when we come back. This is Tiger Sidelines on MC22. Welcome back, everybody. This is Tiger Sidelines. Gabe DeArmond, Dave Matter, and I'm Bo Bayman. As if things couldn't get worse with an NCAA ban, with the football team firing the head coach, then we can talk basketball. The women's team and the men's team spent Thanksgiving break losing.
Yeah, this gives me my opportunity to use my favorite quote ever, which was Buddy Bell from the Royals saying, "I never say it can't get worse." Like, dude, I mean, you've been around Mizzou. It can get worse.
The men's basketball team loses 2 in Kansas City in a couple of games that they thought might be resume builders.
Right.
They look bad in doing so, and then talk about looking bad. Then they lose to Charleston Southern last night by 8 points at home, and now they're 4-4 on the year. And as we speak, out of the tournament. I mean, there's no chance.
Like, no, you can't even talk about that.
Yeah.
You know, put the Jim Mora playoffs thing up now.
I mean, you have to win 3 really good games to overcome what happened against Charleston Southern, and I don't know who they're going to be.
They basically, at this point, I made this comparison this morning on our site. So if I just told you 8 games into the season, they have 4 wins that mean nothing, one of the worst losses in years, and the only 3 times they played good teams, they've lost. Would you know which sport I was talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, it's identical.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Absolutely. And there has been a lot of things on the internet, a lot of things on Twitter, on your site, in the comments. Konzo's on the hot seat. He's on the, let's just clear it up. He may be on the hot seat, but he's not going anywhere.
Well, he's got a great agent because his contract had like protection in there to where the first time he won 20 games or played in the NCAA tournament, he's protected another extra year through his 4th year. Well, he did that in year 1.
Yeah.
So he can't go anywhere. I mean, he can leave on his own.
Then the buyout after year 4 is $6 million. So realistically, he's got 2.5 years left, minimum. And this is, we could do a whole show on contracts at Missouri. Like, to hire a good coach now, you've got to guarantee things. And that's what they did with Konzo Martin. And now we're 2.5 years in, and everybody's going, why do we guarantee everything? Well, you know why you've had trouble hiring football coach maybe is because they guarantee nothing, and when they get fired, Barry Odom only gets $2.8 million, which is by far the least in the SEC. I mean, Will Muschamp's out here keeping his job because South Carolina owes him $19 million.
Yeah. Right.
You know, so that's the kind of contract you have to sign. It's become like baseball, where you're paying for what a guy did, and then 3 years in, you realize you messed up. But I don't know, man. You owe the guy $26 million more. There's nothing you can do.
And the unique thing about Martin's contract was he was inheriting a program that won 27 games in 3 years. So if you're him, you're saying, why should I take this job unless you do a little something for me?
It made sense at that point. But now the interesting thing is, I think they're going to have to do a similar deal in football.
Possibly.
For somebody.
If you include the sanctions in there, if you're a smart coach, you're saying, hey, I don't like inheriting this. Take care of me.
And if you've got an agent worth anything, which 90% of them have Jimmy Sexton, he's going to go, well, see that basketball coach? That's what we want. We're not signing if we don't get that.
You've already done it once. Yep. Why not do it for us? How is the basketball team fixed? This year, probably not, and you just got to go recruit, and you got to land some of these kids.
It would help if when they shot the ball, it went in the basket. That would be a start.
I mean,
analysis.
I'm not trying to be mean, but
I mean, it really looks like just moving the 3-point line back a little bit has killed this team. And they weren't a bad 3-point shooting team last year. Now, Torrance Watson can't hit anything. Mark Smith goes in and out of shooting slumps. You know, they're taking bad shots.
Drew Smith is a good player rather than what we were told he was all offseason. It ain't pretty. No. And also, I think you can't play, this day and age, you just can't plan to win every game 62-57.
Yeah.
It's like trying to win a World Series hitting 32 singles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not how the game's played anymore.
Next up for the Tigers at Temple on Saturday, the women's team lost at South Dakota, then beat SIU-E. Then they went to Cancun, and they lost to New Mexico by 3, and North Carolina used a late run to beat them 82-69. So the Tigers are 2-6. Robin Pinchton's team will play on Sunday at Kansas City, and this is unfamiliar territory for her and her team.
It really is. I mean, we all expect it to be a transition year, but not quite like this. They're in a real rut here, and again, they've got really young players who are good. You think that, by January, February, they'll maybe be playing better, but then that's when you're playing better teams too.
Let's now get to the good section. The volleyball team made the NCAA tournament.
I was wondering. I was wondering where you were going there. Good for Josh.
Josh Taylor.
Yeah, good for Josh.
Josh and Molly lead the team to the 5th consecutive NCAA tournament. They'll take on Northern Iowa. Of course, if they win that, they're in the Nebraska regional, and Nebraska is like the number 5 overall seed, so that'll be tough. But that program continues to just, they just do what they do, and they make the NCAA tournament.
They just chug along, and credit to them, because we are seeing, and we knew this, but you see it on a daily basis, how hard that is to do in any major conference when you've got a basketball team and a football team that all the resources are pooled to those guys, and they still struggle.
And here's the other thing. Going back to the beginning of the show, you have a softball team and a baseball team that are going to come back after Christmas break, and they got a schedule to play, and that's it, knowing going in.
It's a volleyball school and a swimming school. Like Jim Sturck said last week when he fired Barry Odom, our goal is to be top 25 department in the country. Like, that's never looked further away than it does right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's dark times, no doubt, at the University of Missouri. Real quick, championship Saturday this week. Anything change? And who wins between LSU and Georgia? LSU.
Honestly, I watched 0 seconds of football last Saturday. I'm sure you were the same. I'll probably watch about as much this Saturday.
And what's the point if LSU and Ohio State can lose and still make the playoff? What a dumb system this is.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's going to do it. We'll talk coaching search and more next week. You've been watching Tiger Sidelines. Thanks to Bill and Matt and Brian behind the scenes. That is Dave Matter, Gabe DeArmond, I'm Bo Bayman. See you next week on the Sidelines right here on MC22.